speak to us briefly about all the legislative action that you're planning next week? How are you going to accomplish all of that?
It's going to be great. Well, it'll happen.
You're going to do health care and tax reform?
We'll see what happens. No particular rush, but we'll see what happens. But health care is coming along well. Government is coming along really well. A lot of good things are happening.
It's going to be a huge week, as Donald Trump would say. He plans to mark his 100th day in office Saturday with a rally in Pennsylvania, which also happens to be the same night as the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But Trump may not have much to celebrate. A new NBC Wall Street Journal poll shows his approval rating at 40%, the lowest for a new president at 100 days in the history of the poll. Trump also faces a midnight deadline to reach a deal to fund the government and avoid a shutdown. In the latest salvo, White House Budget Director Mick Mulvaney says the administration may be willing to fund Obamacare subsidies that help the poor afford health insurance, but only if Democrats agree to fund Trump's border wall. You know, the wall that Mexico was supposed to pay for.
It should surprise no one. In fact, I know it doesn't surprise anyone that the actual physical southern wall is a priority, a top priority for this president. He ran on it, he won on it, and as every winning candidate always likes to say, elections have consequences.
Joining me now, Jamil Smith, senior national correspondent for MTV News, political consultant Tara Dowdell, and E.J. Dionne, columnist for the Washington Post, is back with us. All right, so Jamil, the idea is that Democrats would somehow be willing to swap the hostage, which is millions of people's health insurance, and pay for the wall Mexico was supposed to pay for. Let me play you a couple of the responses to that. Let's start with Nancy Pelosi and her thoughts.
The Democrats do not support the wall, and I think that the Republicans on the border states do not support the wall. The Republicans have the votes in the House and the Senate and the White House to keep government open. The burden to keep it open is on the Republicans. The wall is, in my view, immoral, expensive, unwise, and when the president says, well, I promised a wall during my campaign, I don't think he said he was going to pass billions of dollars of cost of the wall onto the taxpayer.
And even more blunt was Chuck Schumer over in the Senate. He said the White House gambit to hold hostage health care for millions of Americans in order to force American taxpayers to foot the bill for a wall that the president said will be paid for by Mexico is a complete non-starter. Doesn't sound like this negotiation is going well.
No. I mean, this little hostage strategy is an inherent problem, which is that, you know, people are going to blame Republicans for the failure of health care. If they decide to either just abolish Obamacare straight out or replace it with this new, even crueler plan that was proposed this past week, they're not only going to, continue to, be blamed for it, but they're also going to pass that blame on down to the state houses. Because think about high-risk pools. Think about the things that, these things that are not really well funded by the states in their health plan that would replace the guarantee that is currently in Obamacare that you have for people who have pre-existing conditions. States don't regularly fund this stuff. Who's going to get blamed? Not only Republicans in Washington, but also Republicans in the state houses.
Yeah, and Tara, it does feel like a very strange sort of negotiating tactic to essentially say your choices are millions of people lose health insurance subsidies, which Republicans will be blamed for, unless you let us pay for a wall that American taxpayers were not even intending to pay for. I'm not sure where the leverage is for Republicans here.
The great irony is that Donald Trump ran as a great negotiator, and a great negotiator should be able to negotiate with his own party to avoid a government shutdown when that party controls the presidency, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. So he's coming to Democrats and he's offering them, as you stated, this deal where I'm not going to sabotage the Affordable Care Act in exchange for you agreeing to support me and pay for the wall. But here's the problem. He's actively at the same time trying to pass a law, a new law that would in fact blow up health care, that would take coverage away from millions of people. It's worse than the original Trump Care. Trump Care 2 is even worse. The sequel's worse, and like sequels are. And so he's asking Democrats to agree to not have him sabotage something in exchange for the likelihood that he's going to try to move something through that's even worse. That doesn't make any sense. There's no universe under which the Democrats would agree to that kind of deal.
And EJ, what's really sort of striking to me is a sort of determined cruelty that you're seeing on the Republican side. They seem really bound and determined that they think taking health care away from people would be a win that they would somehow be rewarded for. You've written a lot about the right. What is the thinking behind that?
Well, first of all, I got to say, there is something wonderful for lovers of the truth when a ridiculous campaign promise that a politician knows he can't keep comes back to bite him. And that's what's happening to Donald Trump and his promise of Mexico paying for the wall. It puts Democrats in a very strong position, saying, you didn't say the taxpayers were going to have to pay for that. On health care, the reason that this is like a wet firecracker for Republicans, last week, Trump was talking about going full steam ahead on this, is the very cruelty you talk about at the heart of this. And they can't get enough votes in their own caucus to throw all those people off health care. People talk a lot about the far right of the caucus, which wants to cut this way back because they don't like government providing these kind of benefits, period. But you've got Republicans from Clinton districts and others who say we can't throw 24 million people off health care. And so the very logic of what they want to do is getting in the way of getting it done.
And, and there seem to be these two things happening to me at the same time. You've got the president who is, supposed to be, to Tara's point, this great negotiator who wants to look tough to other countries, who's clearly backed off even the idea of forcing Mexico to pay for the wall and conceded that he really wants the American taxpayer. This is his chief of staff, Reince Priebus, on Meet the Press, essentially kind of conceding the fact that they're not even going to try to get Mexico to pay for his border wall. Take a listen.
We've already seen progress in regard to getting money for border security within the CR. So I'm pretty confident that we're going to get something that's satisfactory to the president in regard to border security within
but it may not
current
be the wall.
negotiation.
It may not be the wall itself.
It'll be enough. It'll be enough in the negotiation for us to move forward with either the construction or the planning, or enough for us to move forward through the end of September to get going on the border wall.
Very quickly, if they get this wall, do they wind up getting plaudits from their base for it, or do they wind up getting hurt for having spent American taxpayers' money?
I honestly think as long as they make white people feel better about being white and safer from those undocumented immigrants that they're so scary, I think honestly it's going to be a win.
Yeah, and Tara, same question to you. Do they wind up getting a win out of it if they manage to get taxpayers to pay for a wall that Donald Trump used to say he could make Mexico pay for?
I think Donald Trump's base at this point is just so committed to him and unwilling to admit, and I mean Donald Trump's base specifically, not the whole Republican Party base, but those people who are core supporters of Donald Trump. I think they're so committed to him at this point and not wanting to be wrong about him that I think that he will get a win from that particular portion of the Republican base, the diehard Donald Trump supporters. And also, they really do want that wall. I think he's going to have some problems, though, with some of those people who are going to end up on the other side of that wall who are actually American citizens. But other than that, I think his diehards will be just fine and be great and happy.
Oh, wait till they find out about the eminent domain portion of the wall building where you lose your land. This is going to be just great. Jamil Smigel, join us later in the show. Thank you, Tara Dowdell, and my buddy EJ Dion. Thank you, guys. All right, and up next, will dreamers be protected under Trump's new immigration policies? More AM Joy coming up.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.